This is a video that I don't ever want to make, don't ever need to make, shouldn't have to make, not excited. I am now 100% confident that the engine on the Porsche is hurt. Now, I know a lot of the assumptions that people are going to jump to, so I am going to do story time, and I'm going to walk you through the past week, 2 weeks of diag that I've been doing with this car to try to figure out one very weird thing that it's been doing that may be related to it now being hurt or have been hurt. So, if you don't like technical videos and you don't like analyzing dyno graphs and lots of diagnosis, not going to be the video for you, but I feel it's important to make because I did have some good findings and I don't want people pointing their finger in the wrong direction.
All right, I do want to preface this with saying that it was not a stock tune on the car. I did get a chip that was matched for the cams that I put on the car. Bone stock engine minus the headers and the 993 SS cam. This is where it all started. I explained in the other video, not that I was let down with the power numbers, but the shape of this curve is abnormal. 964s usually make their peak power around 5,500 and then roll over up top. This power band is more like a newer GT3 with flatline torque and the power keeps climbing. The biggest point of concern is this. The car was running extremely rich. These things, when tuned, should be like 12.5, 13 flat. This car was rolling down almost to 10 AFR, right around where it's supposed to be making peak power, which pointed a massive finger to there being some sort of mechanical issue with the car. Now, Steve Wong, who does the chips for these cars, was incredibly helpful and sent me a massive email with a list of things to check over. He can clean up the tune in order to make this hold the right air-fuel ratio, but you never want to tune around mechanical problems with a car. This I know from lots of other builds and other experiences. And when he confirmed my suspicion that there's a problem why it looks like this, it's all that I could obsess about and all that I could think about. My instinct was that we had a cam timing issue. That would explain the power curve, that would explain the air fuel. However, I was told by many people the extremity of how far the air fuel ratio was off and the curve and everything. Given that we timed the cam in spec, something else was majorly wrong. So the first place that I went to that is a very common issue, around 5,500 RPM, there is a resonance flap inside of the intake that opens up. It's controlled by vacuum and it's triggered, I believe, by you being wide open and the ECU sending a signal. You can verify it's working by keying on and hearing it open and close. But it basically changes the way the air in the intake resonates and moves your power band around. So just to test to see if mine was acting up or maybe not opening, what I did is I did a pull with it manually closed the entire time, and then I did a pull with it all the way open. So just to show you what happens, when it's closed, this is compared to stock operation, you can see that it rolls over pretty hard up top. When it's open, you can see that it holds the power up top, but it loses the mid-range of not being closed. So essentially the stock ECU is able to blend the two of these, and that's what this blue line is, the combination of both. So although that clearly wasn't the issue with mine, since the blue line is how the car was running, it was pretty cool to see in action how that resonance flap actually makes a difference in the power curve of the car. I did something that actually did make the car, well, I didn't make the car better, but usually when you dyno a car, you use one of these things in the exhaust pipe in order to get your air fuel data. However, because of the way that the exhaust is curved, I wasn't really feeling like this was giving the best data. Luckily, on my headers, there's a little port right in here, so I was able to put the dyno wideband directly right past the collector, and that did improve the data to a certain amount. Not perfect, but you can see it still follows the same general trend with having this low spot, but it's still going down as low as like 11.2, where this is supposed to be holding like 13 flat. So the next place I looked, which is a pretty common and easy thing, is fuel pressure. And what's cool about these cars is they actually have a service port on the fuel rail where you can hook up a fuel pressure gauge and then you can basically do a pull and see what fuel pressure does. I did that. I'll put the video over the screen here while I'm talking. I wanted them to be able to hear my engine. Fuel pressure appeared to be doing everything normal, was maybe 2 or 3 psi higher than I think it should have been. However, again, after talking with Steve and other people, not enough to explain why my air-fuel ratio was so rich. And again, we're not obsessing and we're not worried about a horsepower number. Even though this car said it was only making 230 horsepower, I know that my dyno reads very low, so it's possible that it was a lot higher. I was just worried about the curve. I wanted the curve to be right because this is the area where it lives, this is the area where it's happy, and something was wrong. So where do we go next? Disclaimer, throughout this video, you're going to hear me often refer to a shop called EP3 Motorsports. That is not the correct name of the shop. The correct name is EP9 Motorsports. So when you hear me say EP3, just know that's the little Honda boy in me f***ing up the name of one of the companies that helped me the most throughout this process. I suck, and EP9 Motorsports rocks. You may have noticed I had one of these that obviously isn't on the car, which is a random thing to have laying around. That's because I decided the next place was to change the throttle body. Now, not only did Steve recommend this, also EP3 Motorsports, which I want to give a massive shout out to. They have been incredibly helpful throughout this process. They manual swap a lot of Tiptronic cars, and there's a few things that I've found aren't in the write-ups and DIYs online, including switching throttle bodies. So this throttle body is the automatic one, and you'll notice it has a TPS. The manual throttle bodies actually just have an idle switch, which is this thing right here, and then they have a wide open switch, which is over here. So there's no TPS, it's basically idle, in the middle, or wide open. And that's it, and that's how the car drives. So there's a chance that maybe because I had an automatic throttle body that was throwing off what was going on. So the next step was to switch this. And fun fact, I don't remember if I've said this in a video before, how I got connected with EP3 Motorsports. I had posted a video or photo of myself vapor honing my transmission, and he was like, $100 says that you ruined the transmission and there's media all inside of it. So I said, bet, send him a video borescoping the inside of it. There was no media, and I sent him my PayPal. He sent me $100. Complete random stranger. I didn't even know that they were like a Porsche magician shop, and I thought that was pretty cool. And then I like to think we've become friends, or maybe I'm just an annoying future customer to them. Hopefully we're friends, but no, they've been super helpful in a lot of the diag and stuff that I've been trying to figure out with this car. One other thing that they let me know in addition to this, that I was trying to put this off because this did not look like a fun job. It's very crowded up in there to change the throttle body. There's 2 wires that need to be addressed when you do a manual swap. There's basically 2 coding plugs from the ECU. One of them I found, and I had the jumper removed already, which is good, that's how it needs to be. And the other one is basically a grounded terminal that will tell the ECU it's a Tiptronic car, and it pulls a few degrees of timing to help with shifts, maybe something to that degree. But my car didn't have it in the normal place. Lo and behold, they helped me figure out which pin it was on the ECU. It was in fact grounded. I cut the wire, did another pull, and lo and behold, it was pretty much the same power, same exact curve for all intents and purposes, same exact air fuel curve. This is all like happening in the process of days, by the way. This is like every day I tried 2 different things, get frustrated, give up, go back to it. Haven't been filming everything like...
The past like 4 days, we've been like filming the E36, and you've just been over here on the dyno, just diagging this thing, just going crazy.
It's when I know there's a mechanical issue with something, until I can figure it out, it drives me nuts. This has literally been since the very beginning, me with my S13 when I thought it was overheating in the very early days, and it all turned out to be a bad temp gauge. Yep. Literally my whole first experience of owning my drift car was 6 months of just stressing out what was wrong with my car. I think I even rebuilt the whole engine when it was just a bad temp gauge. Yeah. Because I thought I had a bad head gasket. So, lo and behold, I changed the throttle body expecting to solve all my issues, make a bunch more power, and it followed almost the exact same curve. It did make like, I don't even know what, like 3 more horsepower, and was a little bit leaner here. But interestingly enough, I feel like not only did we establish that cutting that wire on the ECU had no effect doing a Tiptronic to manual swap, changing the throttle body also had no effect, which I was told there's no way that it should even run right with this. The dyno said it had no effect. Maybe it's because there's other issues going on, I'm not sure. And this was probably the first good finding that I had. As I'm doing all this, change the throttle body, I realized I was missing a little piece on my intake, and I'll show a photo of what that looks like. And for the first time, I did something that actually picked up horsepower. You'll see up here, I gained a little bit of horsepower. I think it's just like the equivalent of like not having a velocity stack on like an ITB. It just wasn't funneling the air in well. But what did it do? It made the car even more rich. So it made more power, but it made the problem area even worse. So at this point, I'm pretty much going crazy, and what's next? I put the stock chip back in the ECU just to see if maybe it was a chip issue or something that was happening. I don't understand how chips work. So with the stock chip back in, that's this red line right here. It made like 20 less horsepower. It was leaner, but it still has this general curve that just doesn't look right. All these dynographs, air fuel is normally like bone flat right across here. Mine just has this weird dip, and my mind is obsessed that there's something wrong with the car. I don't know what it is. It is an important thing to note that the fact that the dip is happening right where the engine should be making peak power tells me that the DME or the ECU knows that the car should be making peak power there and is giving it the appropriate fuel. So for whatever reason, either the car isn't getting the appropriate amount of air or the spark is not strong enough and it's being left with burned fuel or unburnt fuel. So my next place of inspection was the spark. And on these engines, well, I've got them taken apart, so that's a little foreshadowing, but there's 2 distributors with a bunch of wires that go to them. So I tested the resistance on every single spark plug wire. I also did the test where you run the car on only one distributor. And even though I've done this before, because it's one of the first things that Steve Wong says to do when you get his chip, I must not have caught it. Running on one distributor, there was a slight misfire. So I go, oh, okay, maybe there's something here. Check all the resistance on the spark plug wires, all of them checked out. But what I realized, when I put everything back together, the misfire was gone, and there was one spark plug that when I unplugged it, just didn't feel so great. And what I think happened, the engine, when you're going to plug into the spark plugs, it's not like a straight shot, it's kind of like a little angle. And I think that the coil pack, the spark plug wire was actually resting on the side of the spark plug. So I was essentially driving the car with only one of 2 sparks firing per cylinder. I'm trying really hard not to nerd out too much because this is even like rocket science for me. But every cylinder on this car has 2 spark plugs. So you can actually run with just one spark plug, but having the second spark plug is the equivalent of advancing timing. So if you're down one spark plug, you're essentially retarding that cylinder like 7 degrees. So with that fixed, again, we finally had another event where we gained a little bit of horsepower. Now this is what I'm talking about. Look at that gain. We picked up a whopping 4 horsepower and we made 241 horsepower instead of our 237 horsepower. And on this dyno, that might as well be 500. So, probably not, but it's more than that. Problem though, it didn't fix our rich dip. No matter what we did, this dip is still so prevalent here, and like this is where it should be going shoop, but instead it's going shoop. So, what is causing that? Again, my brain obsessing over this, thinking about it every single night, every single thing that I should be focusing on, instead I'm focusing on this. Something is happening where it is not able to burn all the fuel where the car should be making peak power. So I did what appeared to be easy to do, and I took off the caps to the distributors, and I actually found something. Now this doesn't look that bad because I already cleaned it, but I'm gonna put it up on the screen. All these contact points were like extra gross. Like there's no way that the car was getting proper spark. The way this works, this is still like magic to me, so I don't fully understand, but it's pretty simple. When the engine spins, this little guy spins here, and this is what takes the spark that comes in from the coil pack and goes this cylinder, that cylinder, this cylinder, that cylinder, this cylinder, that cylinder. So if there's a bunch of crud and buildup there, that made sense to me that, okay, at higher RPM, when the car should be making peak power, there's stuff interfering with the spark and it's not able to burn the fuel. So that was my last effort, was to order new distributor caps and new, they call these rotors, to improve that spark point. Now there's a belt that connects both of the distributors. Those have a tendency to fail or have issues. I tested mine was good. There's no free play on any of them. So with the changed distributors, this is what we found. Appeared not to make any difference. It was following the exact same track the entire time. Then it started to get rich here, and had a little bit of a breakup. I'm gonna put that video on the screen right now. I think that's where it all went wrong. I don't know what it was. There was nothing that I did wrong in terms of putting those distributor caps on. But sure enough, I fired it back on. I'll play that video too. Clearly, the engine is now misfiring. If I had a weak spark plug or a weak coil wire or something, it wouldn't have gone from having an issue in a pull to now having a new issue in idle. I knew at this point that something was hurt with the engine. Hoping that it was a distributor issue, I took the caps off, inspected everything, the belts were still fine, all the contact points were still fine. I think we had an unrelated scenario and the engine just finally let go. The only thing that I can think of that I want to tell myself that makes me feel better, this rich dip is still driving me nuts. I want to say that maybe the whole time I had one cylinder that was low in compression. Maybe it had a hurt ring, maybe a cracked ringland, and it just eventually let go. Like, I'm thinking RBs, and in my head, I've had RBs before that run, usually series 1 or 2 RB25s. They'll have like a cracked ringland and they'll run, they'll have a little bit of blow by, and eventually the piston will just explode and it will go bye-bye. Maybe that's what happened. I want that to be what happened because then I'm not still wondering what causes this rich spot. Maybe it is just the cam timing. Maybe the tune just needed a little bit less fuel there. Maybe my exhaust has something to do with it. I don't know, and I was really, really wanting to get answers. It's a gift and a curse that I have this tool and that I'm able to see these things, because had I not known what was going on with the dyno, maybe I would have driven the car and it would have been perfectly fine. Although I'm a pretty firm believer that this was going to happen eventually. I just don't know what it is, and I really want to know what caused it. Maybe it's something top end, maybe it's the cylinders. I just really, really, really am hoping that my crankcase is okay. On these engines, there's like, I don't even know enough to like say the proper terms. So if you're a Porsche expert, especially you, Mr. EP3, don't judge me. You got like the cam towers, that's what the cams sit in. Then you got the next thing down, which is the actual things that the cylinders go in. And then you've got the crankcase where the crank goes in. If it's cylinder, or if it's like head related, wait, is the cylinder head under the cam tower or is that part of the cam tower? Let me look at it real quick. I think people call the cylinder heads the thing that has the piston in it. I gotta look this up because I don't want to sound like an idiot. I guess they are separate pieces. So one of it's the cylinder head and another one's the thing the piston goes in, but they both look the same because they've got all the air-cooled fins on them. Regardless, if it's cylinder head, that's best case scenario. If it's a cylinder, that's slightly worst case scenario. If it's the crankcase, that's the worst thing, because that's the black magic art science that you don't want to pull apart, that is very hard to get someone to do. I'm hoping that I can convince my new friends over at EP3 Motorsports to help me out on an engine rebuild. And if it's a hurt cylinder, it's a really good opportunity to bring this thing up to a 3.8. Because it's not like a traditional engine block, you can do that and actually leave the crankcase together. You're basically putting bigger bore, bigger pistons in it, and it'll make a little more power. The spiciness comes from the heads on these things, but they get very, very expensive. We actually have one of the best cylinder head shops for air-cooled right around the corner from us, Extreme Cylinder Head, but a set of cylinder heads for this car, I believe, retails for like 14 grand. So the odds of us doing that are slim. Honestly, the odds of me rebuilding this car in the near future are slim. Part of the reason why I've also been obsessing with this car and why I've been so hands-on with myself, obviously the guys have their hands full with getting both E36s ready for competition this year with a very encroaching deadline. And I knew that once my season started, I was going to be way too distracted. I shouldn't say distracted, way too focused on the more important stuff to be tinkering with a little side project like this, to where I really wanted to finish it. So that way the car's done. And when I'm home in between all of this travel that I'm going to be doing this year, I had my little cruiser to just enjoy, go take Colette and the dogs for a little stroll down to the local coffee shop and, take some cute photos for my Instagram story. as messed up as that sounds, like it's honestly, I enjoy that just as much as I enjoy driving cars hard now. Sometimes it's just like the experience and the vibe of being in it and getting to share that with other people, specifically your significant other. Mine is Colette in this case. Happy National Women's Day. That's what it's called, right?
I think so.
I got it right?
Yeah.
I knew it was something to do like that. Trying to not, like I'm smiling, but I assure you this is not a fun scenario. This is not something I wanted to deal with. I wanted to do a 4-liter engine in this car eventually, but a 4-liter engine is like ridiculously big bucks. I'm gonna be waiting forever. And I didn't want to mess with anything in this engine. I just want to leave it simple and enjoy the car. I don't want it to make big power. But now it's like, now that it's got an issue, I know I got to do something. And I guess I should say, I have not compression tested the car yet. I have not done a leak down test. I'm going to take it off the dyno. I'm going to go do that in the shop. How I know for sure that it's down a cylinder, obviously the idling sound, but I did the old-fashioned, you unplug both of the coil packs, you crank it. It should sound like as it's cranking, but when you're down a cylinder, it goes and yep, that's exactly what it sounded like. I don't want to do it again. There is a possibility if I had a broken cylinder that debris has made its way into the crankcase, it's made its way elsewhere, and every single time I crank it is going to cause damage. So a leak down test would be the next thing to do, and that is the next place I'll go. So I didn't want to make this video. I know that this video probably won't get a lot of views, and I know that all of the nerd talk in it probably bored a large chunk of my audience, but for those of you that do enjoy numbers like I do, like this is honestly one of the most fun things of anything that I do, is the fact that we have a dyno here and I can look at data and I can educate myself, I can learn more about a car, how things work. Like, it was so cool to see how that resonance flap worked and see that that's like a little piece of technology that Porsche implemented way back when, and I think still even implements to a certain extent, and a lot of the newer GT cars have like variable intake setups. But yeah, no, it sucks. I wish I could have just enjoyed the car. And before you're like, oh, you should have just not touched it and left the stock engine. I never showed it in video, but it was leaking oil so bad that it was practically a fire hazard. When I would stop, it would start to smoke. All the oil was just dumping onto the factory exhaust, and I didn't feel comfortable driving it, especially long distances. The only other thing that I want to address that is a small possibility to have some sort of bearing on this, I did take all the injectors out, I did clean them, I did flow test them. However, there's a possibility that maybe a stuck injector was causing the rich scenario, but I still don't think this rich scenario caused the engine problem. I don't think the tune caused the engine problem. I don't think anything that we did to the engine caused the engine problem. But what I do want to know, and I am trying to wrap my head around, is was there already a pre-existing engine problem? That's what was causing the rich spot, and that's what eventually let go. I don't know. I'm probably not going to be one that pulls this engine apart. If it is EP3, I'll try to bribe them into taking some video and educating us further. I got this car to learn more about air-cooled stuff. I learned more about air-cooled stuff. I got an NA car because I knew that turbo cars have a tendency to blow up, and the NA cars, like, no matter what you do, they just keep running. You'll never blow one up. That's what they told me. Here we are, and it's not a fun place to be. I hope you guys are having a good weekend. You know, and in the end of the day, I'm bummed about this, but we've got plenty of other cool stuff cooking. It's always tough for me because I want to be authentic and just be really bummed. And then people are like, how can you complain? You've got 100 T37s and you're whining about your hurt Porsche. First world problems. I'll tell you what, it still sucks. This is something that I've been like really excited about. It's been literally my obsession as of the past 3 or 4 months. And like, the culminated final product of finally getting to enjoy the car after everything that I've done to it, after all the money that I've spent with it. It's a really big bummer, and at least I'm thankful I got to enjoy it a little bit at Amelia Island and got to share it with a lot of people that got to see it there. I'll have it back together. I don't know when, hopefully in the next 2 months, but it's definitely not going to be a focus. The E36 will be. So next time you guys see that car, it should hopefully be running, doing some tire spinning, making smoke, looking cool. And yeah, if you're a keyboard expert, I would love to hear what you have to say. And I'm not being sarcastic. Maybe there's some ridiculous thing that I've missed or that I haven't paid attention to. Oh, The thing, this is what everyone was saying why the car was running rich and not making power, that I needed to blow the fan into the intake. Now, I'm not trying to offend you if you're someone that suggested that. It is true that, you know, obviously when you're driving, a little bit of air gets scooped into there, but that's not going to resolve what we're seeing on the dyno. On the dyno, the car should be having a flat line air-fuel ratio. We don't give a what the power is, okay? Remember that, because my dyno reads low. So when you see me put up a car and it makes 750 on my dyno, just know your uncle with a 1,000 horsepower Supra, I'm him up.
The intention was to end this video here, and although it would be very YouTuber of me to make a whole nother video telling you guys what I found the problem to be, I'm just gonna put it in here, because if you sat through the whole video of me explaining all this dumb tech talk stuff, you probably want to know as badly as I did what went wrong. Started taking the plugs out to do a leak down test, and when I saw a plug that was completely smashed, I figured as much, that we either had an event where, you know, I didn't think a rod broke or something happened with the piston, because that would be very obscure for it to stay running, and that would just not happen. So I borescoped the piston. Sure enough, it looks like there was contact with a valve. So there's a good chance that a valve dropped, and that is what happened to the engine. The bummer about that, it is pretty clear that the piston looks to be too damaged to be reusable, so it's not as simple as just popping some new heads on and letting her eat. As to what caused a valve to drop, I'm not really sure. Usually it's an RPM related thing that would cause a valve to drop. My current theory is that it had see, I don't even know enough about the head, so I'm like picturing an SR20 in my head. Basically, the spring or whatever is supposed to hold the valve closed was maybe weak, and that's part of the reason we were seeing that rich spot, because it wasn't sealing the cylinder completely, and it eventually just gave out. There's retainers in there, and well, I'm assuming there's retainers in there. Again, I don't know. I've never taken apart a Porsche engine. But maybe that valve had been leaky, and then it just suddenly failed. Learned my lesson. Should have done a compression or leak down test first, and that might have given me some more answers. Where we go from here, I'm not really sure, but it is what it is.